Part 44. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 431. Chapter 431 Sun Ying-er's Troubles. Lee Baiken originally wanted to enter the old house secretly. But it is obvious that the same trick cannot be used 3 times. Because the old man went directly to the best security company and hired more than 100 security guards, who surrounded the old house from the left to the right. The kind that not even a fly can fly in. This resulted in Lee Baiken having to stand outside with a dark face. Josu, who was following Lee Baiken, almost laughed out loud. But where is his professionalism? Josu, what can you do? Josu Gong wanted to say something, but before he could say anything, Lee Baiken said again, "Why do I keep asking you? You have no so-called love experience, how do you know?" Josu. So angry. At this time, I have to step on him, a single guy. What's wrong with singles? Singles also have human rights, right? Josu is even a little dark, hoping that Sunian can torture this Lee Baiken more. However, in order to make a living, he still had to persuade her against her will, "But my wife loves you so much, I just have a little temper with you. I believe that as long as Mr. Lee behaves well, my wife will definitely forgive you. Then you have to give me a chance to show off." That's right, Josu said that on purpose. As a worker, it's not too much to get angry at your boss in a roundabout way. In the house, Sunian and Sun Ying-er quietly peeked from a high place. "How long do you plan to forgive him?" Sun Ying-er carefully poked him with her arm. "I don't know," Sunian said honestly. "You actually don't know? You are usually so powerful and teach me how to deal with Huo Linyuan so easily. Now it's your turn, and you actually say you don't know. Are you saying that a crow can only see others being bad but not itself?" Sunian shook his head. "No, I just think it's too easy. Then it will appear that I have no temper. If too much time passes, I will feel that I am hypocritical. I haven't got him yet. If I let him think that I am hypocritical, what if you don't let me do it?" Sun Ying-er. Is the word a verb? She sat back on the sofa. "By the way, I have something to ask you and ask you to give me some advice." "What?" So Sun Ying-er directly told her about Lu Jing's recent visit to her. Sunian came to a conclusion: there must be something wrong with this guy's brain. It's strange that he has no problem with his brain. He comes to persuade me to marry Huo Linyuan every day. I don't even think Huo Linyuan cares as much as he does. If I didn't know, I would have thought he was Huo Linyuan's father." These words directly made Sunian laugh out loud. She has always felt that there is something wrong with the character Lu Jing's brain. Okay, don't laugh. You should think of a way for me to get rid of this guy. I'm really going to be annoyed by this guy. It's very simple. His purpose is not to get Lan Min, so just give him this." After saying this, Sunian took out a candy from the coffee table. "Just say, if Lan Min eats it, if it's a candy, then he can do whatever he wants. As long as the rice is cooked, he won't bother you." This immediately shocked Sun Ying-er. She really didn't expect that Sunian had such a thing, and she just put it around casually. Sunian saw Sun Ying-er's expression and knew that she must have thought too much, so she quickly explained, "Sister, don't get me wrong, this is just an ordinary candy, not that kind of medicine." End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 432. Chapter 432 Nian, you are really a bad person. But Sun Ying-er still looked at Sunian strangely. What I mean is, you give this candy to Lu Jing, and then lie to Lu Jing and tell him what kind of medicine this is. Lu Jing will definitely take it, and then he will be beaten half to death by Huo Linyuan, so that he will not bother you anymore, and it can also help you breathe. So this is really an ordinary candy. If you don't believe it, just get a peanut. Sun Ying just believed it. But she looked at the candy in Sunian's hand. Do you think he can believe it? Sister, don't doubt his IQ. Besides, just say that this is high-tech, colorless, and tasteless, specially put into candy. What if it's useless if he's eaten by Lan Ren? Sunian showed a standard evil smile. When you drug someone, will you guard him or make some small moves? Huo Linyuan is not a vegetarian, so you can kill this guy with just one piece of candy. If you still refuse, then you can reveal it to Huo Linyuan quietly. It is absolutely impossible for Huo Linyuan to put his woman in such danger, and he will not bother you in the short term. What if he comes looking for me later? Sunian peeled off the candy wrapper and threw the candy directly into his mouth. Can you find the candy just now? What evidence do you have that my candy is okay? Sun Ying'er understood immediately. She held Sunian in her arms and said, Nian, you are really full of bad water, and bad water is so special. Sunian, sister, are you praising me or hurting me? I praise you, I definitely praise you. You are my dearest sister, how can I bear to harm you? Sun Ying'er stayed here for a while and then left. After all, she had to trick Lu Jingwell in order to relieve the hatred in her heart. But her car was stopped not long after she drove out. After getting off the car, he saw Li Baikan leaning against the car and asked with a smile, Brother-in-law, why are you here? I've been talking about it these days. Why don't I see you? What are you busy with? Even my wife doesn't have time to accompany you. I'm not saying that. Accompanying your wife is a fine tradition for modern men. If you can't even do this, then don't regret it if your wife runs away. The ridicule in this statement is obvious. Sister, please help me, and you can do whatever you want. But Sun Ying'er suddenly stopped smiling. Do you think everything can be accomplished with material things? Li Baikan shook his head. That's not what I meant. I just thought that I would try to coax her. Some straight men might make her even more angry. I just asked my sister. After all, I don't know many women. People who know her well. It's only you. He walked towards her and said, please give me some advice. I can do whatever you want. Li Baikan felt that if his thoughts were those of a man, then he might be the one who did it again. And if I choose to ask Sun Ying'er, I will definitely not get into trouble. I will definitely be able to coax him back well. As for face, when coaxing your wife, do you still consider the issue of face? Sun Ying'er did not expect that Li Baikan would actually say the word Qiu. I really didn't know what to say for a moment. After a while, he spoke, are you serious? I haven't seen you for a day, and I miss her so much. Please understand my feelings, sister. Li Baikan said with a serious face. I said the conditions not to look down on Sunian, but because I am willing to coax her to give everything to prove my sincerity. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 433. Chapter 433. Give me a chance to coax you. Sunian stayed in the room. In fact, what she said to Sun Ying'er during the day was not all from her heart. She stayed in the old house these days mostly because she felt a little uncomfortable, but Sunian didn't know how to describe her discomfort. It is a very strange feeling. She lay on the bed and sighed deeply. Rolled around on the bed. Perhaps it was because Li Baikan's behavior during this period was a little too confusing, which made her lose her temper. People's tempers are easily spoiled. When Sunian thought of this, he felt a little stuffy in his heart. Just get up and walk to the balcony. But when Sunian pushed open the balcony door, she was stunned. Because she saw the sky full of sky lanterns. Under the darkness of night, the sky lantern slowly ascended to the sky and stretched to the distant sky. People can't help but look at these sky lanterns, put their inner wishes into them, and let them float to the sky. Suddenly a gust of wind blew. A sky lantern blew in front of her. At this time, she discovered that there was a note on the Kongming lantern. "My sweetheart, don't be angry, okay? Sunian. Did Li Baikan create this Kongming lantern?" Then a lot of Kongming lanterns came over. "My dear, if you are angry, can you not be angry in front of me again? I was wrong, I was really wrong." Seeing these notes, Sunian really didn't know what to say. With so many notes, if someone else sees them, won't they be laughed at? And how can he guarantee that she will be able to see it? Just when Sunian was slandering, Li Baikan's voice rang in his ears, "Susu, can you give me a chance to coax you?" This voice seemed to be coming from the sky. Sunian subconsciously raised his head. Unexpectedly, she saw Li Baikan floating towards her in a hot air balloon. Hot air balloon. Sunian never expected that Li Baikan would appear in such a way. When the hot air balloon stopped in front of her, "I know I was wrong, so I don't ask you to forgive me, but I just want to ask you to give me a chance to coax you. After all, I have been very worried these days." "Worry about what?" Li Baikan said with a solemn face, "Being angry will hurt your body. I'm worried that you will hurt your body because you are angry with me, so I am very worried." These words successfully made Sunian, a shameless guy, feel a little embarrassed. "Can you give me this chance?" Sunian remembered what the old man said at this moment. The old man said, "You can't be too proactive, you have to hang on, otherwise he won't take me seriously." "Yes, I can't be so worthless." "Wrong, wrong, the character of my novel is the kind of person who likes me unconditionally. Now that Li Baikan is like this, I really should bow my head, but... Li Baikan looked at Sunian. He was actually very happy that Sunian was getting angry with him like this. Because Sunian is like this because of her true nature, not for acting, but because she really feels uncomfortable. Besides, "Susu, you are so smart. If you avoid me and don't give me a chance to show off, then your anger will be in vain." Li Baikan spoke, his eyes becoming gentler. But before Sunian could respond, the old man's voice rang out, "Come here, shoot this guy down for me. Whoever shoots him down for me will be rewarded heavily." These words made Sunian's heart tighten. "You should leave quickly. What if you get beaten down?" But Li Baikan reached out to Sunian at this moment. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 434. Chapter 434. The old man laughed in anger. Sunian looked at the hand stretched out in front of him. Suddenly it feels like the world has been put on pause. She hesitated for a moment, then carefully put her hand on Li Baikan's hand. Suddenly Li Baikan got off the hot air balloon. "I knew you were the smartest, Susuo." Li Baikan got off the hot air balloon. Then the old man came to the room angrily. When he saw the two people hugging each other, he suddenly felt happy. Actually, when the old man went out and saw these sky lanterns, he felt happy. After all, these representatives Li Baikan are really willing to spend time on Sunian, which also proves that Li Baikan is really changing. But he was happy, but he still had to look angry on the surface, so that Li Baikan could know that he was supporting Sunian. "What are you fussing about? Why are you putting up these sky lanterns? Do you know that we are now promoting environmental protection? You are polluting the environment. Do you know that you are polluting the environment? Dad, when did you care about the environment so much?" The old man snorted, "Can't I accumulate virtues for my next life? Do more good deeds. If God sees me doing so many good deeds in my next life, maybe he won't let me give birth to a son who will be angry with me." Li Baikan seemed not to have heard anything and just walked past the old man while holding Sunian in his arms. Hey, 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 what are you doing? Your father is talking to you. Do you just not take your father seriously? Do you think of me as a son? You are really going to me off when you look like this. No, I think you just want to off this annoying old guy like me. Dad, I definitely didn't think so. Since you are so angry, then naturally I can't continue to bother you here. If you are angry for any reason, it will be my son's fault. After saying that, Li Baikan and his men disappeared from the old man's sight. Li Jianhong really laughed out loud this time. If I had known, I would have knocked this guy off the hot air balloon just now. Don't give him a chance to be so arrogant. After Li Baikan brought Sunian out of the old house, he tightly held him in his arms, as if he was afraid that Sunian would run away. It was okay at first, but as time passed, it made Sunian feel a little uncomfortable and couldn't help but want to break away. But just when she exerted her strength, a man's voice sounded in her ears, "Don't move, let me give you a good hug and make up for the lack of hugs in the past few days." These words successfully made Sunian stop struggling. "Next, let me think about how to coax you. I'm not very good at coaxing people, so if I make you angry, or you don't like the way I coax you, then you must tell me. In this case, then can we change better." Li Baikan was not happy to hear that brat letting go of Kong Ming Deng for her in Sunian's voice. It seems that his idea is correct. When Sunian recognized Sun Ying'er as his sister before, he didn't take it seriously. "I thought it was just one more person to play with Sunian, but I didn't expect it to be so useful. It seems that from now on, I have to treat Sun Ying'er as my sister." Being held in Li Baikan's arms, I had a little bit of charming thoughts, but because of Li Baikan's words, I lost it. What Li Baikan is talking about is as if he is talking about work. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 435. Chapter 435. Lan Zhen looks like he has something wrong with his brain. Lu Jing was beaten. This time I was sent directly to the hospital. Sun Ying'er suddenly became pure. Then he danced and described it to her. "Nian Nian, what you said is true." Lu Jing didn't doubt it at all, so he just gave it to Lan Mi, and you don't know what kind of beating he got. Ha ha ha, his face is almost swollen, it's become a pig's head. Ha ha ha, it's funny when I think of that picture. If there is a chance, let's go to the hospital. Sister, do you still have the guts to go to the hospital to see him? Now I think Lu Jing wants to kill you. Sun Ying'er felt angry when she thought of the way Lu Jing blocked her in those days, hoping that she could marry Huo Linyuan, who made him believe it. It's my fault that he has a brain problem. He may also be in the mood of not using it in vain, thinking that if something goes wrong with that thing, then he will blame it on us. But as long as he takes a bite, he will not be unlucky. Who makes him worry about his innocence? Got ruined. As he spoke, Sunian fell silent. The human heart is not as good as the snake swallowing the elephant. The key is that the brain is not good. In such a situation, it is strange to be able to swallow it. But Nian Nian, according to Lu Jing's temperament, he will definitely not let it go like this. You still have to help. I want to think of a way to deal with this, Lu Jing, and I'd better let Huo Linyuan know how powerful I am. At this point, Sun Ying'er realized that Sunian had stopped talking. What's wrong, Nian Nian? Sunian handed the document in his hand to Sun Ying'er. After Sun Ying'er took it, she saw Lan Min's name written on the list of senior executives. You mean the executive of that clothing company is a bastard? Why is this lantern still jumping around? Doesn't this lantern have no sense of shame? Lan Zhen has suffered such a big loss, how could he not do something? After all, his man has handed over a company worth tens of billions to our hands. As Huo Linyuan's woman, of course she has to do something for her man at this time. Revenge. This is a good move. Because if the company is transferred to another person, the senior executives of the company cannot be dismissed easily. If the original executives are fired, it will lead to instability in the entire company. This is why Lan Min became a senior executive with such great fanfare. What does she know? Lan Min knows nothing, but she is still a senior executive. A woman who has not graduated from college can become a senior executive. The soldiers will block it, and the water will flood the soil. Moreover, I took over a resort from Huo Linyuan last time, and now I have a clothing company. Do you think I have a chance to get all the companies in the Huo family? The more he said this, Sunian's eyes became brighter. Is this slowly cannibalizing the male and female protagonists? In a text like Chuan Shu, is it called taking away the male and female protagonists' luck? When Sunian thought of this, he was really eager to give it a try. Lan Zhen looks like there is something wrong with his brain. What are we afraid of? I can't beat Nian you no matter what. Sunian likes to hear this. By the way, if we have time, we should go and see Lu Zheng. After all, he was harmed to this extent because of the fake medicine we gave him. If we don't go and see it, it will look cruel on our part. Sun Ying did not see it with her own eyes. He saw Lu Jing's miserable appearance through the photos given by Li Baikan's people. I have to admit that Li Baikan is really a good brother-in-law. Knowing that I was very concerned about Lu Jing's progress, I immediately sent the photo of Lu Jing being beaten. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Zhang Word. Chapter 436. Chapter 436 Provocation. Sister, please don't be so cruel. You tricked someone into the hospital, and you still didn't let him go. Sun Ying picked up the coffee cup next to her and took a sip. I comforted him out of humanitarianism, so it's not cruelty, but kindness. There may not be anyone as kind as me in this world. Also, don't forget Nian, this bad idea was yours, it seems to have nothing to do with me. Sunian glanced at his mouth. Then continue reading the file. After all, when you take over a company, you need to know everything you need to know. At this time, the servant came over and said respectfully, Madam, the woman named Lan Min is here. This made Sunian raise his head. The servant continued, Madam, that woman said she has work to report to you. Sunian and Sun Ying looked at each other. I really mean CAO is here. Since the heroine is here, of course she has to be invited in. Soon Lan Min came. Lan Zhen felt really mixed emotions when he saw Sunian sitting on the sofa. Ms. Lan, do you have mixed feelings now? Do you think everything I have now is yours, and it once was yours? Lan Min was exposed and quickly lowered his head. I didn't think so. Sunian, you really misunderstood. And Lan Min knew very clearly that now he had to bow to Sunian. Since Sunian, a cunning woman, deceived the company from Lin Yuan has been in a bad mood. She must look for opportunities to take the company back. As everyone knows, all of Lan Min's expressions are now in Sunian's eyes. This is really not Sunian's fault, but this Lan Ren showed an indignant expression in front of her. She is blind and a fool, so she cannot see it. Sunian, these are the company's reports for the past few years. I think you just started and don't understand anything. You must be blind, so I specially compiled them for you so that you can get started. He put the documents in his hand on the table. But Sunian yawned but did not reach out to pick it up. Sun Ying next to her frowned. Lan Shi, do you have any vision? Don't you know that Sunian is in confinement now? You are also a woman, don't you know how much harm miscarriage can do to a woman? Moreover, You have always regarded Lee Baiken as your brother, don't you hope that your sister-in-law can take good care of herself as soon as possible? When Lan Min heard this, his expression changed. She raised her eyes and looked at Sunian. You really had a miscarriage. Sunian felt really uneasy when she was looked at like this, just like the feeling of being caught as a mistress. However, Sun Ying'er answered on behalf of Sunian, Lan Shi, what do you mean by this? Do you mean that my Nian deliberately said she had a miscarriage to gain sympathy? Haha, my brother-in-law and her are together every day. Nian is with her every day. If Nian was pretending, how could he know? Sun Ying'er thought of something when she said this, and then motioned for a servant to come over. Go and give your husband a glass of water. After all, he has been working in the garden for so long, and it would be bad if he lacked water. When the servant heard this, he immediately left respectfully. When Lan Zhen heard this, his heart skipped a beat. Your husband, are you in the garden? Is Baiken in the garden? Until now, in Lan Min's heart, there is only a slight misunderstanding between himself and Lee Baiken. She felt that it would be fine if the misunderstanding was cleared up. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 437. Chapter 437 Lan Min, you haven't seen Baiken for a long time, right? Lan Zhen, you haven't seen Baiken for a long time. When Lan Min heard this, he remembered the scene in the hospital. He is so determined. Lan Yan felt that he had to find a way to put everything back to the past. Baiken and I haven't seen each other for a long time. I remember this time last year, I was working in a small design company. Baiken always liked to pick me up after work. Even though I said no, he was still there regardless of the weather. Go pick me up. Sunian knows this. It is indeed rain or shine. Lee Baiken gets off work early every day, and then goes around half the city to pick up Lan Min from get off work. Then he sent Lan Ren to the male protagonist's arms, and did all that at night. Thinking about it this way, Lee Baiken is really good at helping others. Sun Ying'er now really feels that the woman in front of her has the word bitch written all over her face. Lan Zhen, if you think about Baiken so much, then you can go to the balcony over there. If you go to the balcony, you can see it. When Lan Zhen heard this, he said, I'm here to find Sunian. No, we should call him Mr. Su now. He's reporting on the work, not reminiscing about the past. Mr. Su, take a look at the report. If there are any problems, then I'll go revise. Sunian changed into a comfortable posture. Lan Ren, do you understand Jui? Lan Yan, who had a serious face at first, was stunned when he heard this. Where's Keiju? Lanji is silent? Asked. Lanji lowered his head. Then Sunian laughed, you don't understand anything. Can I read the report you made? After saying that, he immediately threw the documents on the table at Lan Min's feet. I can tell you whatever report you made. You don't understand some terms in the clothing industry. Is the report you made worth my reading? Lan Min bit his lip. What am I? Do you really think I'm the same as you? I just want to play around when I get a company. I know what you have in mind, but I hope you can learn it with your real talents. At least I hope you can have a higher outlook, and don't think that I am the same as you because you have a low outlook and knowledge, and then you use these pieces of paper to fool me. Sunian suddenly became serious, which shocked Sun Ying'er. She thought about it for a moment, and she didn't seem to know the term Sunian mentioned. In fact, Sun Ying'er always thought that Sunian wanted this company just for fun and to disgust Huo Linyuan. But now she realizes that she is a little too narrow-minded. So Sun Ying'er looked at Sunian with admiration. I will correct it, Lan Min said aggrievedly. Correction? Why are you able to become a senior executive of this company? Why, you don't even know the most basic things. Sun Ying felt extremely happy. Since this man wants to stay and take revenge, he must pay the price. After all, Gojian was even able to eat the stuff that King Wu Fuchai had given him. At this moment, there was a steady sound of footsteps. Sunian sneered when he heard the footsteps. This is a plot. I just said a few words about the heroine, and Li Baikan came to save the beauty. Okay, all the good impression I gained on Li Baikan these days has been lost. Li Baikan, who just entered the house. How did he know that Sunian was taking care of Lan Min right now? Whose efforts were in vain. However, Li Baikan still knew that if he turned around and left now, it would be a sign of guilty conscience. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 438. Chapter 438 Lan Min feels uncomfortable, she is happier than anyone else. Li Baikan walked directly in front of Sunian. Brother-in-law, you have been working in the garden for a long time, are you tired? I just asked the servant to bring you water, have you drank it? Drink, thank you sister for your concern. Li Baikan looked at Sunian who was nesting on the sofa. I came here because I want to discuss something with you. Sunian responded casually. Then Li Baikan sat next to her and hugged her naturally. I was busy down there just now. I think our garden is too small. Why don't we change our house? After all, you can't guarantee that you will like roses in this life, one kind of flower. Let's move to a house with a bigger garden, and I'll plant whatever flowers you like in the future, okay? Li Baikan's gentle look stung Lan Min's eyes. But Lan Min was even more surprised by what Li Baikan said now. I will sow. But this idea was immediately given up by Lan Zhen. Sunian is a vicious female supporting character. Now that the heroine is by her side, of course she needs to show off. Actually, you don't have to do this. You can just tell the gardener directly. There is no need to plant flowers for me personally. You have been plowing the ground all morning today, I must be tired. Go and plant flowers for me yourself. You have been plowing the ground all morning today. Lan Min really didn't expect that Li Baikan was young enough to do this for Sunian. Compared with this, it seems that what Li Baikan did for her before was nothing. I asked Josu to find a land with a big yard, the reason why Li Baikan chose to plant it himself. It wasn't the future brat who caused the trouble. The last time I bought roses, they ended up like this. Li Baikan felt that he wanted to do something that brat had never done. Let me prove that it is not easy for his front wave to be hit by the back wave on the beach. It is very difficult. When a woman's soft hand squeezes his hand. He knew he had done the right thing. Actually, he said there was another reason for changing the house. When he was in the garden just now, he looked up at the house and remembered that it was a house they randomly chose when they got married. It can even be said to be the so-called plot design. Not sincere at all. He will slowly change everything. Actually, it's not that troublesome. Sunian lowered his eyes and saw the wound on the man's palm. Why are you injured? Oops, medical kit, medical kit. Sunian quickly asked someone to get the medicine kit. Li Baikan didn't say anything, but looked at Sunian tenderly, watching her struggle with her minor injury. However, Lan Min next to him felt extremely uncomfortable. Sun Ying walked to Lan Min. It turns out that once a man is in love, he has no reason. You know, when I met Li Baikan before, this guy always looked aloof and wanted to look at people with his nostrils, but now I wish I could hold the whole world in front of Nian. Hey, I'm really a bit envious. After all, that woman doesn't want to be treated like this. Sun Ying looked down upon this Lan Min very much. In her eyes, this Lan Zhen is a person who can only win the sympathy of men with tears, although she doesn't know what kind of means Lan Zhen has to win the sympathy of so many men, so that these men can treat her so well. She was dead set. But she knew this kind of woman, seeing her prey run into the hands of others. So many years of grievances. Lan Min feels uncomfortable, but she is happier than anyone else. Yes, she, Sun Ying is such a narrow-minded person. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 439. Chapter 439 Just made it up. Wait until Lan Min and Li Baikan left. Sun Ying approached Sunian like a curious baby. Nian, why do you know so much? Sunian, who was about to pick up the cup and drink water, looked enigmatic. Can you explain to me what Keiju means? Sun Ying felt that she had to learn it carefully so that she could cooperate with Sunian and help her. After all, Sunian helped him so much. It would be bad if I kept holding Sunian back. Sunian looked suddenly enlightened when he heard this. You said this, I made it up, what's wrong? Sun Ying making it up? Yes, don't you think what I said is very casual? Is it messy? Oh, she made up that document, or she found someone else to write it. She deceived me, so why can't I fool her? Sun Ying burst out laughing immediately, and then hit her gently with her hand. You actually made it up, Sunian, you are really amazing. I just thought you did your homework secretly behind my back. I've been overthinking it for a long time. Sunian was also very innocent. Sister, think about it, you have been with me at my old house these days, what chance do I have to do my homework? How could I possibly know what you did at night? I am a serious person. Although Li Baikan told Josu to find a house, he still got the garden. Continue to do unfinished business. This is a good way to practice your skills. Lest the flowers fail to grow later and Sunian feels even more that the waves from behind in the Yangtze River push the waves ahead, he will be photographed on the beach by that brat. Baikan, I have never seen you like this before. This voice made Li Baikan frown. As expected, I turned around and saw the pitiful Lan Min. Why are you here? Li Baikan felt a little stupid after asking this question. After all, women are the heroines in this novel world. Where can we stop her? But the next moment, Lan Min's words made Li Baikan want to slap himself. Because Lan Min said, Baikan, you said that I can treat the Li family as my own home and can go anywhere. After finishing speaking, Lan Min felt that the surrounding temperature dropped a few degrees instantly. Baikan, we know you are still angry with me, but I have no choice but to forget it because of some small things. Have you forgotten that I was always by your side when you were in pain for so many years? Haha, it's better that Lan Min didn't say this. When Li Baikan heard this, he thought that he met Lan Min on the anniversary of his mother's death, and then this woman said some chicken soup for the soul, which moved him so much. Think about it carefully, it really doesn't make sense. Although the old man was not very reliable towards him, he gave him all the love since his mother passed away. When he was still young, the old man did not leave him to the nanny like other wealthy families, but took him with him at any time. He understood that the old man wanted to give him a home as much as possible. Thinking about it now, if he really wanted warmth, he would just stay by the old man's side. I even feel that the author who created this world must have something wrong with his brain, and the relationship between him and Lan Min is as if he lacks maternal love. Author, do you know what you are talking about? Humph. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 440. Chapter 440 The Sixth Dream. Li Baikan felt unhappy. I don't want to talk to this woman either. Just throw away what you are holding. Can there only be love between us? Isn't it possible that we are brother and sister? Li Baikan now swore that he really wanted to kill this woman. He has never wanted to kill someone so much. Li Baikan quickened his pace. Then Li Baikan summoned all the servants at home and announced that Lan Ren could not be let in. Just like this, it's not over yet. He also directly asked the servants at home to start cleaning. It's like something dirty has entered the house. Is commanding all this. Li Baikan just returned to the room. He has not had any dreams during this period. And he didn't know whether this was a good thing or a bad thing. I treat Lan Men that way, but Lan Men still bothers me so shamelessly. What about the previous life? In her previous life, she used her beloved woman to bring harm to Sunian. At the same time, he also hopes that he can dream and dream about how much suffering Sunian suffered in his previous life, and that he can make up for it in this life, 1,000 times or 10,000 times. With this thought, Li Baikan slowly closed his eyes. This time it went as he wished. He was dreaming. This time it was in his office, no, to be precise, it was Sunian's office. Lan Zhen, you are dreaming, there is absolutely no way I can give you the child. Child, Lan. These words made Li Baikan's heart skip a beat. The scene before him became completely clear. Sunian was seen protecting her belly and looking at Lan Mi, and Lan Min had a condescending attitude. Sunian, you have to understand your current situation. If you don't have a large sum of money, then the Li family will be finished. If the Li family is finished, what can you give this child? And it is absolutely impossible for me to watch Baikan's only child in this world have a despicable mother like you. A despicable mother. When Li Baikan heard this, he became angry. What qualifications does this Lan person have to say this? Moreover, Sunian's belly was so big that she wanted to give birth. Lan Zhen, if you give up your mind, I will not give you the child. Is it because your body can't give birth to a child, so you came to my child? Haha, Lan Zhen, don't you think about why? If you can't give birth to a child, you are robbing my child now, which is such an immoral thing. Are you not afraid that even if you give birth to a child in the future, what will the child's body lack? Why is your mouth so dirty? This time Sunian is not as weak as before. Trembling. I have a dirty mouth, so you come and bet. Lan Min still refused to give up. Don't forget, you used tricks to get this child. Yes, I did resort to tricks, but if I tell you that you robbed other people's children, who would not say anything unscrupulous? Lan Zhen, if you have the ability to bet, bet on whether there is a with your head raised, but bet you must bear the cost of losing yourself. These words successfully drove away Lan Zhi. After Lan Shi left, Sunian touched her belly lovingly. Isn't mom very powerful? Don't worry, mom will definitely become more powerful in the future. I'm scared of the so-called heroine. But when Sunian said this, tears kept falling. Li Baikan walked behind her silently. She began to slowly become stronger, and slowly became the Sunian of this life. But the road to change was really hard. After Li Baikan woke up, the first reaction was to kill the woman. But when he reached the door, he stopped. It would be too easy for her to kill that woman like this. At this moment, Li Baikan suddenly had an idea. Then he walked to the bedside table and picked up the mobile phone on it. Josu, please check to see if any of Huo Linyuan's women were pregnant or had children in the past. If not, then help him make one. After all, he is in poor health now and can't be cured. We have been here for so many years. Of course you have to take good care of your friends. Doesn't Lan Min want someone else's child? Then he will give one as a gift. End of this chapter.